Okay, I've decided I'm going to do a reply at this, but I'm not going to play it. I will leave the link to it in the morning so that you can watch it yourself. I would encourage you to watch the whole thing, and I would encourage you to stay open-minded about what I'm about to say. This is something I've been screaming for years. And even when I gave an example of my dad's mother, when it come to the stuff that she was able to do and even physical strength, then people want to use cop-outs and say, well, yeah, okay, yeah, every now and again you get one woman that could be as strong as a man or blah, 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 and that's just a freak of nature. It's not the norm, and it's not in biology, it's not in their makeup. They're hardwired differently, and they're this differently, and they're that differently. And I've said it for years that that's a bunch of nonsense, that every last thing has been socially engineered, including genders and gender roles. Okay? What we feel about genders and the differences, that people put way too much emphasis and focus in on the differences. Okay? And the differences has been socially engineered to create division amongst the genders from the very get-go. And I've tried to tell people this and tell people this, and you fight me, and you tell me how wrong I am. And so many times I've heard this from people that don't even know what they're talking about. They haven't applied no critical thinking skills. They haven't looked into anything. And they definitely don't have the life experiences I have to be able to say what they're saying, okay? But just the same, I'm not going to blame them because it's been what's been put in everybody's face for ever and ever and ever and ever, okay? But I'm going to tell you this right here is very important for you to watch, okay? Because what they've done here is an awesome thing, but they should have started at a younger age. But that's all right. That's all right. And why do I say they should have started at a younger age? They have 7 and 8-year-olds here. Okay, and this is where they started in elementary school at 7 and 8-year-olds. And they done their experimenting. And they were freaked out and surprised. And they were freaked out and surprised again, and freaked out and surprised again. And I was never freaked out or nor never surprised whatsoever with the results of what they were finding. Matter of fact, I knew this is what they were going to find. And if they had started at a younger age, they would have even been more successful at proving what they're proving here. Because in reality, why do you think the elite, I'll guarantee you this right now, the powers to be know this already. They understand what I understand, and they know already. Because they've socially engineered this, they're responsible for this, the same as they're responsible for the war on the genders right now. That's right, the powers to be. So many of you people want to point at feminism, and that was only one tool, one little tool of manipulation used. It starts from the time you're born. And a good example for you is this way. So we started with 7 and 8-year-olds, and we couldn't figure out why. And a lot of you say, well, yeah, but they don't develop until, and even in this, they said, oh, well, by the time they're 7 and 8 years old, this much is developed already. Okay? And then do not understand some of the behaviors amongst the genders, then I'm going to give you the example of this. You've watched and witnessed this over the last decade now with the transgender movement and mothers trying to turn their sons, their boys, into girls. Okay? And you have witnessed this with your own eyes, and I think the youngest I've seen so far in society is my 4-year-old boy told me that God made a mistake and put me in the wrong body. Okay, now I want you to seriously think about what I just said. Because unless you think when a baby's born, brand new, 0 years old, that the brain in the baby's head is not functioning, and it's just a mass of jelly sitting there doing nothing, which would be complete insanity, than what I said about the youngest I've seen that I have seen. Now, it could have been younger, but what I have seen is a mother trying to claim that their 4-year-old son knows their girl. And they were surprised at these kids recognizing gender at 7 and 8 years old and trying to figure out when that started. And there's something I've been trying to scream at people for so long, but you don't want to hear it. You don't want to hear it. You only want to hear what's been put in your face. You don't want to do any critical thinking skills. You don't want to look into anything for yourself and really just sit back, zip your mouth, sit on a fence and watch and observe. The majority of you don't got time for that. It's so much easier just to go along with the flow, right? Go along with the brain in the jar and do your thinking like everybody else. You can fit in. Even if you're wrong, you don't care, right? Because you don't care if you're wrong. But here's the reality. The reality is in your face. When the baby is born, doesn't matter what gender it is, the brain inside that little baby's head when it's born is not just a mass of jelly sitting there with no knowledge. Everything that's done from that day on, from the very first day that it comes out the mother's womb, everything that is done, this baby, even before it can talk, is sucking in knowledge. Think of a Short Circuit and Johnny Five the robot. Input, input, input. This is the way you need to think of it because this is how it really works. Now, kids don't start school until 5 or 6, and depending on when they were born, could be 6 and closer to 7. So kids don't start school until they've already actually been in their home environment for at least 5 years. That's right, at least 5 years. So from the day the baby's born, that's right, from the day of birth, when the baby's born, this kid's brain is watching everything that's going on around it. Everything. The home environment. What's going on around it. If the parents sitting there watching television set, you think the kid's too young. It's not a knowledge in the television set. You got your 6-month-old baby in the living room and you're sitting there watching TV cradling your baby, or the baby's just laying there or whatever in its little swing or in the things that we get for our little children, and the TV's running, and you think that baby's not knowledge in anything that's going on around you because its brains is just mush at this age. Its brains ain't functioning at this age. Its brains wouldn't understand or have knowledge at this age. Let me give you another example. If you were born in Germany or Russia, by the time you get of age to talk, you start talking the tongue that's heard around you in your home environment naturally. Naturally. No lie. You know this to be true. Now you get to be 10 or 11 or even sooner than that, 7 or 8, and you're already talking. 6 years old, 5 years old, you're already talking, right? And if you were born in America, you're speaking English, right? And if I took you to Germany or Russia, you wouldn't understand a thing these kids are saying. And these kids wouldn't understand you. How could that be? How did that kid learn that language? Because their brains wasn't a pile of jelly just sitting in their head from day one when they first come out of their mother's womb. The brain was actually absorbing information like Johnny Five. And the other great thing this video did is it proved without a reasonable doubt that all these 7 and 8-year-olds' physical mass, strength, was pretty much exactly the same. And they proved it physically clear up to puberty, that the girls' and boys' physical strength was pretty much the same, except for the boys believed they were automatically stronger, and the girls believed they were automatically weaker. Well, where did they get that from? Oh, that's right. They got that in that first 5 years before they ever hit the education system. They got it from their home environment. They got it from what was put in front of them. Every last bit of it's social engineering. Every last bit of it. Do you think it was an accident that my dad's mother, my grandma, was splitting wood with an axe? In today's society, I know many, many, many men who could not just take an axe and swing and split wood. And this was a woman who split wood with an axe and did it off and on all summer long to make her pile of wood for her wood burning stove that kept her house warm and her wood burning stove that she cooked her food on. Okay, so no, it wasn't an accident that she was that strong. See, because the environment she grew up in, they treated her just like they did a boy. There was no gender difference. She was doing the exact same work the boys was doing, the kids was doing. And it never changed her whole life, and she come out every bit as strong as any man would ever be. See, so, the myth of the boys are stronger than the girls is exactly what it is a myth. But you can't get that through the majority of society's heads. You are so focused on differences between genders that they pushed in your face that you have fallen for the lie, that you're arguing with each other over stuff you don't even know. I bet you the powers that be at the top are just laughing their asses off at you. I really do. I'll bet you they are just laughing. They're probably on the floor in stitches. I mean, just can't even stand up because they're laughing so hard at the majority of all these people out here. How well their engineering has done. How well of a job and good of a job they've done. To understand the truth, there's hardly any differences between the boy and the girl, period. That's right, there's hardly any differences. Oh, but yes, there is. Boys have testosterone and girls have estrogen, and girls have different parts inside their body, so that makes them different than us. There you go. There you go. This is what you hear all the time, isn't it? What you hear is what they've told you so they can keep you divided. So that you would look at each other differently, so that you would treat each other differently. Yeah. It's not that there isn't truth to the girl has different parts of her body, or maybe estrogen and testosterone. There's not. It's not that there's differences there, but of course there would be. How would you expect your semen to fertilize an egg in her and her body to develop a baby if she didn't have the organs to develop that baby? Does that mean it made that kind of difference that society's telling you? No, not at all. But you want to believe it does because it plays into the scenario, and it keeps the division going, and it keeps the genders fighting one another. So you've started off with false beliefs from the time you started school. And why would that be? Because, see, all the adults grew up in the same world with the false beliefs fed into them. You represent them false beliefs out of what you've been taught your whole life in front of your children when they're born. How would you not? So the children are sponging, like Johnny Five, the information from their home environment before they ever hit school. Their home environment's made up of television sets, which is designed for programming and programming and programming. Do you think they accidentally call programs that you watch on television set programs? No, they don't. People at the top, powers to be, are very, very intelligent and understood this stuff. They control Hollywood. They control what's been put on that television set. And that television set literally is programs, programming, programs. And these infant children that are born at 1 day old, 2 days old to go home with their parents, So because they can't talk don't mean they ain't sponging in information around them. You take these children at a young age like that, and you just think their brains are just a mass of jelly. You think, oh, they don't understand. They're way too young to understand. Not realizing they're sitting there looking before they can even talk. Sucking up information, listening with their ears to what's going on, and the brains are sponging in that information. How do you think when the child started talking, they started talking in your tongue? When they first started talking, they started talking in your tongue. How did they do that? Well, that's because the whole time they couldn't talk, they were sponging that information in. Because it's like Johnny 5. Input, 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 input. And the home environment and the knowledge that these children have by the time they go to school at 6 and 7 came from their home environment. Then you went into this classroom of 7 and 8-year-olds and you did this gender neutral study, and you were sitting there freaking out at the differences and freaking out, finding out you were wrong. Oh, but you were wrong. Oh, but you were wrong. These kids are, but these kids are, but these kids are. How do you think that happened? It happened because you've all been misled. You've all been lied to. You know, gender roles is man created, and I don't care what anybody tells me. Anybody that thinks gender roles isn't man created hasn't really critically thought through the process and paid attention to what's going around them enough to realize that yes, gender roles is, and gender roles has been changed a few times throughout history. You wasn't alive to see it when it happened because they always do it in such a manner that the people that lived through, if gender roles was different at one time, they're going to make sure everybody's dead from that era when they change it, so that pretty much everybody's elderly on their dying bed when they change the gender role, so that the next generation of people in the 80 to 100 year span will all know only that gender role. And as far back as they can go in their life, for that 80 to 100 years, it's going to be the same. These people that are doing this to us are not stupid. They know what they're doing. You know, I seen a documentary many years ago that I can't even find now because it's been scrubbed. And in this documentary, they showed the Western days, the actual days of horse and buggies. And they showed at that particular time that gender roles said that the women had to do the approaching and oppressing of the man. The opposite of what we know. And everybody argues with me and says, oh, that's not so. And I say, so you was alive back in the days of the horse and buggy, huh? You was alive back then, huh? No, you wasn't. So how can you sit and say it's not so? You wasn't alive then to know this. Neither was I. So you really got to use critical thinking skills to figure out that there's a chance it could have been. That documentary said to put it out that this is how it was in the Western days. And the reason that the women had to do the approaching and pressing is because the man was the provider. That's right. Because the man was the one that was going to be financially providing and caring for the woman. And because he was the one that was going to be financially providing, caring, and protecting the female, that he has the right to choose what female he's going to do that for. So therefore, it was up to the female to do the approaching and pressing. Now we move from the Western days to the day society, and it's flipped upside down. Do you know anything else that's been flipped upside down on its head, people? Do you? Isn't every bit of truth has been turned upside down on its head by the powers to be? Yes, it has. Right and wrong, good and evil. Good's been flipped upside down and being called evil. caring for other people means you're weak. Everything in our society's been flipped upside down on its head, right in your faces. So many of you people acknowledge this, but you can't acknowledge the fact that there's a really strong chance that documentary told the truth, and that's why I can't find it no more, because they don't want you seeing it, because they don't want you knowing that. And wouldn't that make common sense? Yes, it would. Just like this stuff about boys are naturally more physically stronger than girls. I hear this all the time. And I know this. My dad's mother would have beat the shit out of the most of the men out here in today's society who was so physically strong. And you would have been all embarrassed and tried to hide it from everybody that this woman kicked your ass. You say, well, but she's weak. No, she's not weaker. It's been socially engineered, deliberately done. It's not a mistake. It's not an accident. And they proved without a reasonable doubt in this video that clear up to puberty, there was no physical strength differences between girls and boys. And that was clear up to puberty. And I can tell you, clear up through adulthood, there would be no physical strength differences if we didn't pamper one gender, keeping them from physically getting any stronger. Because that's exactly what's taking place. You know, it's no different than placing that female above your own self. Power and greed and ego. The three main corruption things, tools used that absolutely corrupt the human mind. Pornography, a tool used to destroy. Everything that could destroy and divide the genders has been thought about and done. Everything is upside down on its head. It's not an accident that a mother would be saying, my 4-year-old told me God put him in the wrong body. No, your 4-year-old didn't tell you that God put him in the wrong body. You lie. You're pushing that kid to be a female because you are a male hater. And that goes out to you women who do this to your children. Because we haven't found no men doing this to their children. I haven't seen no man tell that girl or boy trapped in a girl's body yet. But we have seen mothers, because every last time this type of stuff happens with a child, it's already been proven that it seems to be the mother doing it, the mother doing it, the mother doing it, the mother doing it. That's because social engineering has actually physically made her a man-hater. And she's never going to be called a man-hater because we're too busy attacking the man. That's right. Even men attacking men. All for that validation of the female. The divide of the genders is humongous. And it's no accident. It's been deliberately done. You know, you need to recognize your real enemy. Your real enemy isn't men. Your real enemy isn't women. Your real enemy is the people at the top that are responsible for this. You need to go after your real enemy. You need to take your real enemy out of position. Lock them up. I don't care if there's only a few thousand of them. That's a few thousand too many that belong locked up in everything they've stolen from the people, taken away from them. Because to stop what's going on, you have to go after your real enemy first, which would be the powers to be. Then once you overturn that and you get rid of your corruption, I mean, you're just literally going to involve bringing down the powers to be and bringing down governments. Whoever said you needed a government anyhow? Government's nothing but control, mind control. Every war that's ever been fought, world war that's ever been fought, has been instigated and started by governments. History keeps replaying itself, and you're just too naive to see that. History's replaying itself right now. This is not the first time in hundreds and hundreds of years there's been a divide of the genders and a war of the genders. No, it's not the first time. But they don't want you knowing that. They've done this before. They've divided the men and women against each other before. Had the exact pretty much same results then as they are now to bring down society. Anyhow, I think you should watch this. I'll provide the link in the more. And I think you should really seriously think about what I've been telling you here, because it's the truth in your face.